Some things in life are unknowable. They exist, we can observe them, but annoyingly we will never fully understand them. This includes stuff like light's quantum properties, Scientology, or the movie Tenet. And I believe Counter-Strike 2 smoke grenades fall into the same category, for it's an often forgotten topic that's shrouded in mystery. Through experience, we can better learn how they'll behave and react to situations, and maybe that's good enough for players of the game. But it isn't good enough for me, because just when you think you've figured out how its particles behave, they turn into a wave instead. In the words of Tenet, don't try to understand it, feel it. Acerola deserves credit for making his own version of Counter-Strike 2 smoke grenades. I'll link to the video right here. But what I'm doing in this video is a little bit different, thankfully, because his video is really good. This video is very much focused on the behaviour of the smoke grenades in Counter-Strike 2, and especially in fringe cases. And to do this, I've created a playground for smoke grenades which I'll deploy in various spots and will assess their behaviour. Let's get the basics out of the way. In CSGO, smoke grenades were exceedingly simple, and flawed because of it. They deployed a big sphere of smoke particles which didn't care what was around them. They'd pass straight through nearby walls, would fuck with transparencies, and were rife with one-way viewing exploits. Valve, please fix. And fix them they did, swapping out their ball of smoke particles for a more dynamic, volumetric solution for CS2. When deployed, they fill the empty space around them. In Valve's preview video about them, we can see how it's represented by a bunch of cube-like voxels, which seem to compute what's solid and what isn't, then they figure out how to fill the space between them. How many of these voxels per smoke grenade are there? I don't know, 20 across perhaps, which is about 8,000 cubes. We can then shoot holes in them which will quickly close up again, and eventually they gradually disappear in a semi-convincing manner. Is it perfect? No, but it's so much better than CSGO's version that we shouldn't care. Though it would be nice if we could trust them to extinguish flames, but that's another issue. For general gameplay purposes, the clouds do a good job of obstructing vision where they should, and not passing through solid objects where they shouldn't. Sometimes I think they're a little too enthusiastic about wrapping themselves around corners of stuff, and other times they don't fit through a gap you think they should. And these issues become greater the smaller the gaps become. Take this example, a glass tube with two holes to the outside world. If I throw a smoke grenade roughly in between these two gaps, you can see that something different happens every time. The first time it forms a very tidy looking smoke sausage. The second time it shoots out of the first gap, creating a large cloud outside the glass tube. The third time, I must have thrown it into the wrong place because it fills the solid bit of the glass tube. And finally it shoots out of the other gap, but not the first one. Now, I know that every time I threw this grenade it was thrown to a slightly different location, but only slightly differently every time. Yet the resulting smoke formation couldn't be more different. It's inconsistent, so this is what I think is happening. As you can see from this very important preview video, the voxels themselves are quite big, and I don't think they follow the grid of Counter-Strike. Let's use Minecraft to demonstrate this point. Imagine this game had smoke grenades, and each smoke voxel in this game is exactly the same size as a standard block is in the game. This would allow smoke to pass through a one voxel gap like this, every time. But I think the smoke voxels in Counter-Strike 2 don't line up with the game's grid, and instead are placed depending on exactly where the smoke grenade lands. Because of this, you can imagine if you shift all the smoke voxels off to one side like so, then the smoke is no longer able to pass through this one voxel gap, because 4 voxels are now being partially blocked by the surrounding environment. And I believe it's this slight difference that's causing vastly different results every time a grenade goes off. In my opinion, it doesn't matter in Counter-Strike 2 that much, because a lot of the things in the map these days don't follow a clean 90-degree grid, so any kind of fixed placement will be messy. Plus, a lot of smokes are dependent on very specific placements, so this could be seen as upping the skill ceiling. But it's why I don't think the smokes are consistent every time with their behaviour around and through small gaps. But oh no, look what's happening here. The smokes are appearing to pass through the glass next to where the hole is before they travel through the hole itself to get to there. But is this just a visual error or a smoke propagation error? We'll get back to that. On to the next thing for now. I tossed smokes into increasingly tight spaces to see if it influenced how far the smoke would travel. And after a certain point, once this corridor area got narrow enough, then yes, it did force the smokes to travel further instead. But that was the least interesting discovery I made. More interesting was how it would sometimes pass straight through one of the walls either side, especially once the space it was in before that was too confined to do much with. So, maybe enclosed smokes do break the rules a bit if the alternative is just not to smoke at all. And that's only the beginning of all the anomalies, because once the gaps got small enough, they had no choice but to not smoke around the smoke grenade itself. But sometimes something curious would happen, like the smoke would appear but a long way away at the very end of the thin corridor, but not in the gap connecting where that was to where the grenade detonated in the first place. All very bizarre. We'll get this out of the way now. If a smoke grenade goes off inside a solid surface, then it treats the interior of that solid surface as though it's an empty space. But it will sometimes also spill out into the real empty world around it as well. Toss it below the ground and it will cover the ground in a cool looking layer of fog. None of this should ever happen when you're playing the game properly though. I tested props like trees and prop based walls, and I can confirm that they behave exactly the same as solid surfaces do. Because they are. I guess in practice a tree generally isn't wide enough to be able to obstruct a smoke spread, but if you have a wall of trees like so, then it does become impassable. Even if there are gaps in between them, which like I've said, I think is due to the size of the smoke voxels being too large to pass through said gaps. I tested to see what kinds of invisible walls could also block smoke from spreading. These invisible tools tend to be used in the game to block player movement, or to stop bullets from passing through an area, or to smooth surfaces off, to allow for more predictable grenade bounces and so on. And 4 of these surfaces also happen to restrict smoke. These were solid block light, block bullets, block bomb, and layer control lip. So there you go, you can use one of these instead of glass if you want to see the smoke more clearly. What is interesting is what happens if you shoot a window once a smoke grenade is deployed on one side. It looks like the smoke begins to pour through the newly created gap, but only by a bit. Almost as though it's only the billowy wafts that will pass through where the window used to be, but not the body of the smoke cloud itself. I also tested smoke grenades around physics objects to see if moving these things around after the cloud had formed would waft it about. But alas, once the initial smoke's deployment is over, any changes to the environment do not appear to change the shape of the cloud in any meaningful way. So you can't like waft it about with a massive windscreen wiper or anything like that. And just like that, CS2 has killed any dreams I had of making a fart concealment simulator. Here are a few examples to show how smokes will travel further if they're deployed within a confined space, but that there is still a hard limit to how far they're allowed to travel from the grenade's detonation point. In this rough diagram I've drawn here, I show what I think is happening, where a typical smoke grenade fits well within the box that's assigned to it. But if it's in an enclosed space, it will reach further, up to a point, and then it will abruptly stop. Because I guess filling the entire map with millions of smoke voxel calculations would slow stuff down too much. So this big invisible cube around the smoke grenade is here as a safeguard, just in case somebody tries to abuse the smoke calculations in a custom map such as this one. Nice one, Valve. I hate you. Source 2 smokes are weird. The smoke can simultaneously exist and not exist at the same time. It can teleport. It can behave like particles and waves at the same time. And yet, they still make more sense than Tenet did. I mean seriously, why did that car itself crash in reverse when it was only the person driving it who had gone through that time reversal thingy? It just didn't make sense. And no, I can't just feel it. But the smokes in CS2? They may be mysterious, but they're knowable, feelable. I feel quite confident that I can chuck one of these mothers down banana and they'll obstruct sightlines with relative consistency, even on bumpy terrain, even if the smoke is half shrouded by a barrel. Close enough. I trust them to bypass such obstacles, and yet still entrust them not to pass through a wall in a game-breaking way. Valve has struck a brilliant balance with these things that leaves other games in the dust. Non-voxel based dust at that. As time goes on, hopefully increased processing power will open up more possibilities for these things. Perhaps the voxels could be made smaller and more precise, and their travel distance made further. Maybe they could correctly shade the environment around them so that player shadows wouldn't just blatantly show through them. And maybe, just maybe, they may finally get a fluid dynamics simulation that enables them to interact with moving objects and fans and open windows convincingly enough for me to finally use them to create the ultimate fart concealment simulator mod that I've been dreaming of for 20 years.